Good to go.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Senate Education, Wednesday, March 22nd, 1:30. We have with us Brad James, Finance Manager for the Agency of Education. And Mr. James, we had S-117 sent to this committee by Senate President. This is a bill from Senator Perchlik that proposes to allow teen parent education programs to receive 100% of the prior year's statewide average net cost per pupil from the pupil's school district of residence. Also proposes to eliminate the requirement that a sending school district reimburse a receiving school for the cost of coordinating a pregnant or parenting pupil's education plan as a teen parent education program, So trying to get some financial back. Do you have a copy of the bill? Would you like
I do. No, I have. Thank you very much.
So just trying to understand potential financial implications, trying to understand a little bit more about what the bill would do. We have a teen parent center in my district, and so I'm sure in other districts as well. As I understand, right now students, young women are going there, and I don't know what percent of the statewide they're getting now. I believe Senator Perchlik mentioned it yesterday.
83%.
83%. So we would put that up to 100%. That's what this bill says. So
yeah,
though we start with you.
Sure, no problem. Again, just for officially for the record, Brad James, Agency of Education. I got the call this morning. So I grabbed the bill.
I got the call and answered it, and we appreciate that very, very much.
What bill is this? Yeah. So I mean, basically, all I really did is I just kind of grabbed numbers from what's happening this year and said, here's what it would be for a district at X, Y, Z, or Q's number of students. Now I'll give that in just a second.
Okay.
But one of the things I was trying to figure out was, do I have any way of finding out how many teen parent or how many students are taking advantage of this program right now? And the answer is no, I don't know. What I would need to do in order to get a statewide number is to canvass the teen parent centers or all the school districts or one or the other and figure out what count there is out there. So I just don't know what that is. I don't think we collect that as an individual thing you can pull out of our data to the best of my knowledge, but I haven't seen anybody from the data side to ask them that question. So I'm going to pass out, and I actually have one for everybody who's not here. So great. I don't know if only let the desk or whatever. Hey, yeah. There's 3 going this way, and many going that way. Thank you. Got for everybody. Sorry.
It's okay. I'm looking out. Before we start, may I just ask a question? How is it that somebody gets 83%? And where does that? Here's a teenager, presumably, right? We're talking about teenage pregnancies, and they're getting 100% in their school. Likely, right? I mean,
they're being counted at their school as a student for purposes of counting students. So
yeah,
for a full ADM, but
full ADM
people, etc.
And then it's a situation where they're pregnant, they're now trying to raise a child and get educated. I would think that given scheduling and everything you're doing with the little one, it's going to be a little bit more complicated for sure. And we say 83%. So I just don't know how that happens or who sets that again. And
it was set when this was written, and I was around when I was part of these conversations.
Okay.
It was DCF and AHS that were kind of pushing this, and we were involved. I think it was 2007. I think is when this was going on. Maybe somewhere right on, give or take a year. And I don't recall where the 83% came from, but I know things changed a little bit over time in those first early years, because this is all in session law, as I think Beth found out, unfortunately.
Right, that's true. She did go through. That's right.
And so I'd have to walk back, because I have it all sitting at my desk or in a folder on my desk. But I don't remember why a certain percentage was picked. I think because generally speaking, the way when you look at the enrollment language and state board rule and how they're being funded and such, it's getting prorated based on the number of hours they are per week versus what a full-time week would be. A full-time week for a secondary student, which is what these are, hopefully, is 27.5 hours. So if you're there for 10 hours, you're not even getting half. And my guess is for a lot of these kids, students slash whatever, young people, 10 hours is probably a lot per week because of the things that you said. They're also getting other things there besides the education portion. And we AOE, or the education bonus, is paying the education portion, or the school district.
Would it be wrong for me to say, somebody outside looking in saying, okay, here's a young woman, she happened happens to be pregnant, and now she's getting less money.
She's not getting less money. It's the program that she's going to.
The program that she's getting to.
Right. I mean, part of it, I think, is because the home high school where she's really enrolled, because is still doing some work in the background, I presume.
Okay.
Again, I don't know because I'm not in contact and having these conversations with people. But I presume they're doing some stuff. Are they doing that much? I don't really know. Because theoretically they should be spending the young woman, or in some cases man, should be spending most of the time with the teen parent program. And so that's where the money should largely flow. I have no objection to this, just from my own personal viewpoint. This makes sense because they do get their money's cut there.
So if the way we're paying for education with property taxes, if the individual is still living at home with the parents, they're still paying for a full week. Is that?
How do I mention that? Two scenarios. I mean, the home district operates a high school. I'll use Rutland. Okay, Rutland has the high school. The students being counted there, but some of that money in that budget is going from there to, I can't remember the name of the Rutland teen parent program there, but some of that money is going there. The count is staying there. The cost is still at the high school district. So parents are paying the tax rate. They're getting the benefit of their child being counted too at that point. If it's a tuitioning district, it's slightly different, but it's roughly the same idea. They're still going to count for the student. They're still getting because they're still paying for it ultimately. So
And your grandchild.
and well, that's still counted first.
That's one-
Takes
the 1.5
years.
weeks.
Takes years for them to trickle into the system. So okay. So I mean, I'll go back to your questions that are handy. I don't remember off the top of my head, but in some ways, we were talking about $70,000 versus just over $14,000, which is what I'm getting here.
Yeah.
So current law, the number that we're using is the last available figure, which is $17,107. And we're taking 83% of that under current law, which is $14,199, and that's what they're getting if they're full time for a full year. That's and when I say they, I mean the teen parent program, not the student. The money, sure, in this case, the money, but it's all the student. But again, as I said, my understanding is that these students are not there full time. They may be they're getting education services. That's the money's for 3 to 4 hours per day, as opposed to say 5.5 was a full school day for that age group. So it gets prorated. So the teen parent program is not getting that full amount. That we're looking at $17,000. They're not getting that full amount unless the student is there that whole time for full year, full day. If you were to change it to 100% clear, then the full amount would be $17,107. That's an increase of $2,980 per student.
But which they may get 12.
Exactly, which they may get 12. And so all I did, because again, I don't know what population. I just said, here's the potential additional cost, and this is really a maximum additional cost because they can't go over a certain number if they have X, Y, or Z. So I went from 1 through 10 students, just multiply by 2.9 or $2,908. It's not huge dollars. But it can impact school districts. I mean, some large districts could have 10 students, so it's an additional roughly $30,000. It's just in round figures that they have not budgeted for. That would suddenly be they have to find some way. Is that a horrible amount? Probably not. But it is something that's unexpected. They do try to maintain their budget.
So when 83% is going with the student to the teen education program, does that mean that 17% is staying in the district, or are both sort of sharing 83%?
They're kind of sharing. It's not like it's additional money It's
They're sharing the
basically.
83%.
Right, and basically what's happening is they're saying, okay, here's our budget, oh, this young woman became pregnant, she's gonna go to this teen parent.
Yeah,
Okay, so let's say it happened right at the beginning of the school year, it was clearly not part of their budget.
right.
So they've got their budget, and they have to take again, so call it $15,000, they have to take $15,000 out and give it to the teen parent program that they didn't plan on doing.
Sure.
So it's not that there's money left over, because we're not funding on a per pupil basis, we're funding students going to the teen parents program per pupil basis, but not the kids in the school district itself. So it's not like there's money left over. I mean, it sounds like there is, but there really isn't. It's just a lump of money. It's just a dollar amount is really all that we're talking about.
If the school district were to come in and say, hey, we're holding on to 17% or 10% or whatever, because we are doing all these other things behind the scenes, and we're just giving the district the remaining 83%, but that's not happening. So sharing.
It really isn't.
Okay.
It sounds like it is the way it's written,
Yeah.
the way it was struck out, because if you're tuition, then you get paid, they're getting the cost, you get that 17, but that's not really what's happened. I mean, districts are building their budget. Some of them did start building in contingency funds for students who became pregnant or hit, met these criteria and did go to these teen parent centers. But it's not like they're doing everything on a per pupil basis. They're doing, here's our aggregate budget. That's just part of it. If it's a contingency fund that they have the money, it's not a contingency fund there, and somebody 1, 2, 3, 4 kids start going to teen parent center, then it's money out of the rest of the budget that they're taking. I mean, it sounds like there's a pot of money, a certain amount they're keeping some, but that's not really the case at all.
Questions?
I presume pretty well start with the hand, so.
Yeah, just my reaction continues to be, I think it would be, as we're talking so much about early childhood, just education in general, I'm inclined to keep this conversation going, talk to the parent education centers, see, learn a little bit more, but we're not talking about a lot of money. And it sounds to me like it would help the young woman, and it would also help the child. Some $50.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think to the impact the young woman or the child.
Well, the program improves.
But the program
If
itself.
you have a few thousand extra dollars, which that's what I'm saying, then in turn.
That's true. They
Yeah,
do need the
yeah,
money.
yeah.
And they're not gonna say no.
Sure,
And I
sure.
understand that completely. But, because
But,
this isn't a huge amount of money we're talking about.
Right. And school budgets, pay for all sorts of supplies.
Mhm.
There are particular supplies needed when somebody has a baby. And I believe that some of these programs also help with those things, diaper, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I
So maybe, again, these could be some.
Yeah,
issues.
I mean, again, from a personal perspective, I'm not speaking to age.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
We haven't talked about this at all, as far as I know. Personally, I think it's a fine idea. I think the money is well used. I think it goes to programs that they do a good job, from what I understand from the school district's talking to them.
Yeah.
And there is a need for it.
Society, what society wants is to get the individual back into school,
Right.
obviously.
Yeah, provide them, provide her with an
So-
education.
I think it sounds like money well spent.
Yeah.
Although I admit I don't know much about the program.
Yeah, well, there's one in Barry, I think.
There's
There
one
may
in
be
Barry.
one in Rutland. I don't-
There is one in Rutland, there's one in Barry, there's one down here.
I know there's one in
Brattleboro. There are probably 7 or 8. There's one in the Norwich area. There's one up in the northeast Kingdom. I can't remember exactly where. There used to be a few more, some were closed. I think there's one in Addison, Middlebury area, but I'm not 100% sure that. I think Burlington has one. So they're scattered about.
Can we find the one in Rutland and Brattleboro, the teen centers?
Yeah, I don't have.
And just find out the names, that's all right. And we'll have them in, 2 members of the committee.
Hey, Kate, if you want to just send me an email, I have the names somewhere, or I can get the names there.
When I checked the enrollment, I think it may be the parent-child education center.
Okay.
I may have visited.
I did, but
Yeah,
Dave and I both were there
Okay.
last week.
okay,
Yeah, and they do include the mother.
Yeah.
Part-time.
Yeah.
And then they take the child and care for it the rest of the day.
okay.
So,
My guess is they're probably about to out there. There's an education director, the Superintendent Association, School Association put out and the teen parent center listed in the back of that. So I have some credit cards.
And any objection to having a person?
No.
Yeah, okay. We'll have this one. Any other questions for Mr. James?
Thank you about anything.
Yeah, right. Your son's doing well?
He is doing
Good.
well.
He was here last year as a little
He
bit.
was he was
intern?
last year senator or shadowing Senator Clark.
That's right.
And he did that for a week here in his, I think it was his March break, and he liked it.
Good.
He's right now he's thinking about doing Governor's Institute if he gets in.
Right.
So because he's now a junior, will be a senior next year.
Well, so you started to think about next.
Yeah, that's exciting. So,
Right.
so when he's doing well, he did cross country running, cross country skiing, and now he's not doing anything. He's kind of happy. Yeah, but it's a little bit calm for him after.
Right. Thanks a million.
My pleasure.
Good to see you. Listen to that.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you all too.
Ms. St. James, good to see you.
Hello. You want me to come up?
Yes, please. Just while we're on this topic, just don't say anything that you don't know, but I'm inclined to think that we would approach this by way of a letter to finance if we get to that point, because there's no real vehicle. I mean, we could put it on a miscellaneous education bill, but finance could do it probably, most efficiently. So just know that in the back of your mind that that's probably how we'll handle it. If we get there, we'll hear from these two teen parent centers next week or sometime this week, whenever they can zoom in, and go from there. And then from the agency, would you let us know if the agency objects to this in any way, maybe in the next couple of days? So there were a couple of loose ends that we need to have a look at, and just some evaluation of priorities for between now and the end of May. Let me just, so maybe we can do this together and kind of see career technical education. Maybe just talk a little bit about what's up on the board, priorities, things that we need from Ms. St. James. The first thing I'm going to actually raise is language that did not make it into our pre-K amendment. So our amendment to the pre-K bill, S56, we did not have anything in there that would consider issues of geography. The reason I'm raising this is the Northeast Kingdom had the situation where we heard from the I don't know, educator or parent or advocate that they would like their children to be able to go over the border to New Hampshire to look for early childhood education. And it seemed to me, and I know you sent me an email on this, Beth, that at one point we were going to add something to S56, and that got pulled out. I remember when it got pulled out. I remember being in your office, somebody saying, do we need this geography stuff? And next thing you know, it's gone. That seems like the piece that we need to return in an amendment that would get to the constituents' concern, unless I'm.
Sure. So Beth St. James, Office of Legislative Counsel. Your memory is the same as my memory. I'm just pulling up the language. So right now, I believe this bill is in appropriations.
Okay.
And I
Yes.
do not believe, so it's this, the language that you all voted out was included in, I believe, a strike all amendment to S56 from from Senate Health and Welfare. So it was included in, it's now a part of the amendment that is in appropriations for S56. we can talk about vehicle in a second, but it's really up to you all on how specific you want to get in that language. I think that was, you had a lot of conversations about not wanting to be too specific. And I think that's the direction the language went, and perhaps why the geography language was part of kind of paring down of the questions for the committee. So we can certainly add something. We can talk about the vehicles or ways to do that. You know, you are asking the study committee to look at the delivery of pre-K in the state, which is going to include every corner of the state. You do not specifically ask the study committee to look at providing pre-kindergarten education through a system that takes advantage of, incorporates services outside of the state. You don't specifically ask for that. So if that is something that you want the committee to consider, you may want to think about adding that language. But if it's just, your consideration is just that the committee is looking at the provision of pre-K services everywhere, and what does that mean for expanding equitable access? I think that would naturally include the whole state. But if your concern is specific to allowing state funds to take advantage of services offered outside the state,
We shouldn't have that.
I don't know that the language that's included in what's currently in front of appropriations would naturally include an analysis like that.
And it's probably Senator Kitchell's constituent, as I recall. It might just not be on her mind. What I was thinking about doing was proposing an amendment, or having her propose an amendment with me or with the committee or with whomever to add that. Do you recall if the constituent was just thinking pre-K?
Yes, right now, the current tuition system, you can go anywhere in the world for K through 12.
I'm sorry, it wasn't earlier than pre-K, correct? It wasn't early childhood. It wasn't birth to 4 or birth to 3.
So it would be birth to 3 that I think you're talking about. Pre-K, Act 166 funds is really what we're talking about under today's law.
Yeah, and that's what the constituent was talking about.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
That's 3 through
Yeah.
3 through 5. That's pre-kindergarten education. The 0 to 3 pre-K, that would be DCF.
I'd be grateful if you would just put together an amendment and send it to me and Senator Kitchell.
Yes, would you like that as an amendment with both of your names on it, just you?
Good. You can send it to both of us, and you can say Senator Campion. Well, it's her constituent. Yeah, it'd be great if her name were on it, if she's okay with that. And I don't know when they're voting S56 out of their
I
committee,
do not know.
so it could be that they could do it tomorrow in committee or something.
I'll definitely draft the language today and
Right.
send it to you.
Okay.
And just so I'm clear, you're interested in adding a charge to the study committee that would require them to look at whether, well, let me ask, so right now, the way the language is drafted is my understanding is you were trying to create open-ended questions that allowed for the committee to find space without feeling completely boxed in as far as solutions go. So would you like to add language that's specific that says what would be, how would including out-of-state pre-kindergarten education programs help to expand access? Do you want to add something?
Yeah, I understand.
How specific do you want to get?
I think it's going to be pretty broad. Are there opportunities out of state where this has to be looked at, given geographic makeup, given geography, given a lack of perhaps pre-K services in a particular area. So again, you're in a rural part of the state, similar, this situation, as I understand it, you're either in the car with your child for 30 or 40 minutes, or you're driving right over the border a few minutes. And that's what we're trying to understand and make sure that might work. Mr. James.
From sideline, again, Brad James, there's old language in the tuition section of 835.
Yes.
Which apply to a number of channels right along the Connecticut River border. It sounds like that's what this constituent was discussing. So you might want to consider something along those lines where it's a geographically isolated place and they don't operate a school district, because that's now the Northeast Kingdom Choice Unified School District, and they don't operate a school, they tuition everything.
And that's in, where's that?
Section 835. It doesn't necessarily specify.
I see.
But
Yeah.
It's there.
No, thank you. I will draft some language and send it to you for your review. And Senator Kitchell.
Any objections to this?
Just a question,
Please.
because I think we brought it up the last time we talked about this.
Yeah.
What about the educational standards being the same? I mean, if it's convenient for the parent, but the child isn't getting the benefit of a good childcare facility or education.
Great memory, and that's exactly what was the issue, and that's why we felt like, and this kind of allows us to sort of look outside our borders, but making sure that it would sort of meet, that it would be, kind of just, is this any kind of solution that we would entertain going over the border, given like you're saying, standards are going to be different, but it might be closer to the family, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, but the other side of it that I'm thinking of is, the parent's choice as to what they want to do or where they want to send their kid, and the parent's decision of, all right, do I want to send my kid to a pre-K program that's in Vermont and has X, Y, and Z standards, but it's an hour and a half away, or do I want to go 5 minutes over the river into New Hampshire where the standards are different, maybe worse, maybe better.
But the kid's closer.
But the kid's, much closer. And I feel like that would be up to the parent to decide where, or, if the standard's 5 minutes away or 15 minutes away. I think it would be up to them to decide, how important that is to them.
Yeah, I agree.
And maybe the study could find out, how many people is this going to affect? And if we could change the rules for.
Well, we're keeping it very broad, and really we're just saying as part of the pre-K study that's already in S56, outside the border opportunities will be considered so that they can come back and let us know what they find. Is that, Ms. St. James, do you think you have enough?
Mhm.
Okay, so we're not getting, we're not saying, hey, they have to have the Vermont standards, they have to do this, we're just trying to broaden their examination. Okay, great. The other item that is on my list is CTEs. And as I recall, so we pulled any CT language out of our miscellaneous education bill, but as you will see tomorrow, the next day, the House is going to be coming in to talk about their miscellaneous education bill. And you'll see in your file, so I just want to return to this topic of CTEs and what we want to do and need to do for the CTEs. And you will all recall, if you look in your file from Hayden, it was a 2-page document. Hayden, thanks for putting it in here. That really, this was a group effort by a number of CTE directors that came in and testified earlier in the session. And so, Ms. St. James, what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to help the committee with and help our colleagues with who are running these programs, is kind of going through and understanding what we can do, what we should do, what we can't do. And as I recall in talking with you at one point, there were a lot of things on here that were either already being done, or it just didn't seem to take this document and slide it into the bill drafting machine. So, please, no criticism at all. I know I apologize.
It's okay, Google has an AI chatbot that will draft for me, so. There's been a couple of those floating around.
So would you mind just walking us through this and weighing in a little bit? please?
Sure.
Thanks.
So I believe the document that you're all referring to is something that Jody Emerson,
Yes.
it was her written testimony from,
Yeah.
based and her, oral testimony was much more comprehensive, but these were the, I believe, the bullet points from her testimony from several weeks ago, if not months ago at this point. So what I've done at various points in the session thus far is looked at this document in relation to specific questions and thought about what information I would need in order to draft to meet goals. And so perhaps we could just go, do you want to go point by point?
Yeah, let's go
Okay.
point by point to see where we are. This is, you know, as is always the case, there are some things that don't make crossover, but I don't want to lose sight of this work.
Sure. So the first bucket of topics is under funding. And the first bullet point there is non-competitive funding model, similar to what was already presented in the Act 189 pilot 3 years ago, funding that doesn't pit us against our sending schools. So the first piece I would just want to clarify is that Act 189, it was from 2018, and it created pilot projects to propose novel ways of integrating funding for CTE and general education. And the final report proposed 2 funding models, both of which would be pretty complicated because it would be, I believe, changing property tax structure. But the reports themselves, it was just some paragraphs describing it. There was no actual draft legislation for either of those funding models. However, in Act 127 of last year, the pupil weighting bill, you did require JFO to contract for services to complete a systematic examination of CTE funding structures and identify new funding models. There was a report due back to you on March 1st. I don't know I did not look at the status of that report prior to today's testimony. And then after that, AOE is required to come up with an implementation plan based on the JFO report and report back with legislative recommendations by July 1 of this year.
So this feels like it's in the works, that the report's going to come back and then AOE will return in July with some kind of recommendation.
Yes, but I would caution you to make sure that March 1st, you have that March 1st report to make sure everything's on track. I don't know, I'll look it up.
Lindsay, is everything on track?
You do not have the report,
Okay.
but it is being worked on.
It's being worked out. Okay.
Well, the first report is from JFO.
Yeah,
Oh, the first
that one I
report.
don't know about.
Yeah, so that's the one, because if that report's not done, then AOE can't do their work in a timely manner, so.
And their work, AOE's work is due
July 1.
July 1. Okay.
So it depends on what you want to do. You could wait until that you get that information that's already in the works now, or you could try and create a new funding plan now.
I would prefer we wait, given that everybody is putting in effort and trying to figure this out. So let's wait. We will get the reports, and then rather than have this committee jump into work that's too complex, I think, at this point, and other groups and brains are working on it. Great.
So how are we gonna flag that so we go back to it?
It's a great question. It's interesting because the governor said this in Bennington. It was down, you know, so much sometimes is things are started. How do you make sure you finish them? We were talking specifically about the PCB stuff. We've been working on it. Now some people want to postpone working on it. It's like, how do you just kind of finish this stuff? You know, every 2 years, things change. You get a new group of people. And so I will flag it, and I will hand this paper to Hayden, who's put it somewhere. So next year when he's in his college dorm and he pulls it out, says, oh, wait, you'll give us a call. Okay, okay. Sounds like a good plan. So, good. So then, secondly, adequate funding to meet demand of programming.
So my question would be,
Yeah.
what is adequate funding? What's the demand for the programming? Is that already something that's going to be taken into account in this report back that you're getting?
I'm also inclined to wait. We're gonna get this back. I can be in contact, if all of a sudden the weights change, we'll know that perhaps adequate funding will be met and people will feel pretty good about that.
I will note, I just did a very quick search on the reports page
Yeah.
with the term career, and nothing bumped back, nothing came back to me.
Okay,
So I've just reached out to JFO.
great.
Great. It could be that I'm just not using the right search terms, but I have reached out to JFO on the status of that report. If that work is not being done timely, you may want to think about adjusting the dates.
Okay.
So the next one would be, the next bullet point is advocate for a baseline statewide CTE educator contract, similar to what has been done with healthcare. Again, I don't know exactly what's meant by this, but if it's meant to refer to the way teachers' healthcare has been collectively bargained and how that is being handled across the state, that would fall under Damian Leonard's
Okay.
expertise. But I can certainly coordinate with him if that is something that you want to.
I'm flagging more testimony would be needed, talk to Damian Leonard, and maybe if we need to, we could incorporate it into some kind of study or examination at some point. See objections, yeah.
Just a question on the first bullet point.
Yeah.
I don't understand funding that doesn't hit up against other our sending schools. Is that, they're not competing with them, or was that?
I don't know, that's why I would suggest
Oh,
we take
okay.
more testimony on that.
Mr. James.
I can address it. There's a perception that some school districts do not encourage their students to go to CTE because it's the primary way for the school district itself, send it to the tech center instead. That's kind of, I think, what they're meaning by that statement.
St. James, access.
Access, review, first bullet point, review and update rules and regulations related to career and technical education to ensure equitable access. Asking the state from a drafting perspective, this is not meant as a comment on the work that would be required of the state board. But from a drafting perspective, drafting language asking the state board to review their rules is very easy, but I would just throw back, what does equitable access mean?
Yep.
Is that geographically, socioeconomically, what does equitable mean?
We'll hear from Ms. Emerson on that.
And you may, I think there have been some emails back and
There have
forth
been some,
since
yeah,
then,
I just.
Yep.
Ms. St. James, while we're on the topic of the state board, I just, if it doesn't disrupt the conversation too much, I want to ask about financial literacy. And I was just greeted in the hall saying, hey, you guys took some testimony early on about financial literacy. This is from one of the advocates. And, we're looking, as you know, at Holocaust education or civic education. We're always getting these ideas come forward where people say, hey, can the legislature get involved in curriculum, in making certain things required? Generally, the legislature has had more of a hands-off approach, but there are standards. And so what I'm wondering is, how do we, and who do we ask? I believe it would be the state board, when we ask for a review of a standard. If, for example, we wanted a group to take a look at financial literacy in general, or open up something. Does any of this make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
it depends on what your goal is. If you want to adopt standards, right now, that's the state board's jurisdiction. If you want any group, whether it's the legislature, an advocacy organization, AOE, another state agency, to make recommendations or to study a topic, you can certainly do that. But right now, the state board is charged with adopting those standards.
Is it one of those things where we would say adopt standards for something, or could we also say consider reviewing.
You could say either, and there's if you require them to adopt standards in financial literacy, you are requiring them to adopt standards in financial literacy, you are not, in just that short phrase, that phrase doesn't dictate what those standards shall be, you're leaving that to their discretion. If you just say, shall consider adopting standards, then you are leaving whether or not to adopt standards, period, in their discretion. So kind of two levels of discretion there. The delegation of this, well, the language in statute that is their duty to adopt the standards is very broad. It just says implement and continually update standards for student performance in appropriate content areas and at appropriate intervals in the continuum from kindergarten to grade 12. And then it goes on. So it's very broad. I will say, it looks like there may be a financial literacy standard already.
Okay.
But I would encourage, I'm just looking on the state board's, the Agency of Education's website in their content areas. I would encourage you, if you're interested on this, to hear directly from the agency or the state board on actually how that's being carried out in the field.
Okay. So what I'll do is just pause for a moment and ask them to see next week, beginning of next week, or if I don't want to lose sight of this, can you just schedule some time with Hayden to have somebody come in from the Agency of Education and tell us what is the standard around financial literacy?
Yeah.
And then maybe we can adjust it or not adjust it. I just understand. 20 minutes. Yeah.
There is a bill in the House on financial literacy. I don't know if you're aware of that. It's on the
Not
wall. I think it's on the
surprised.
wall.
Yeah, it's where a lot of those bills end up, but it's important, and I do think there's something that could be done there, and I just don't want to lose sight of it. Please.
We're still under access on the first page there. Establish, oh, this is the easy one for me.
Yes, yes.
Not for the rest of the state. Establish a baseline statewide school calendar. So right now, oh gosh, I have to look at it, but I believe they're regional calendars. And it's more of an encouragement that everyone's on the same page. This ask is asking you to have a statewide school calendar so that CTE centers who are receiving children from different supervisory unions and school districts have the same in-service days, school vacations, holidays, etc.
Please.
One thing, more of a comment, but I think one thing to take into consideration, if you hear from CTE centers, like, there might be technical training that could be weather related, whether it's agriculture or, I don't know, I'm sure there are other things, but I'm just not sure what they are off the top of my head, but I just think there could be some curricula that involves certain seasons, just something to think about.
Yeah, that would make sense. Certain things can't be done in certain weather. Yeah, please.
Senator Weeks and I went to Stafford 2 weeks ago and had a little round table, and that was the biggest issue they had. They do it now. They actually work around the different schedules, right? But that was one of the takeaways from that meeting was we really need to get everybody on the same page. It would make our job a lot easier as far as times, arrival times and stuff. So that was from Melissa Connors and Bill Lucci.
So just so I'm clear, the CTE calendar is different than the school calendar itself at that?
Well, it depends on when the school starts. A lot of it had to do with start time and going home time.
Yeah.
When the kiddos could arrive.
Yeah.
And when they had to leave. So that affected, they were kind of the buffer at the CTE. Instead, if everybody's on the same schedule, we could even do like a bus schedule. One school could send a bus and pick up school kids on the way along.
Save money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I know people in this chair and the House side too have tried to push statewide calendars because you get even kids,
Yeah.
same district, different districts even, whatever, mom and dad have 1 week off, different for one kid, all that
Right,
stuff.
yeah.
And,
Superintendent Olson from the supervisory board was there too. His head was going north and south.
okay,
He's aware of it.
all right, well, we'll flag it. And I think the next thing has to do with calendars as well. Yeah, local control, allowing different districts. Yeah. Yeah, so that's all calendar. I will flag it. I think it's too much to add right now. I think right now, the only thing that we can add might be the next topic. If you would go ahead.
Yes, legislate a way for students under 18 to be allowed to job shadow or participate in work-based learning in the manufacturing and healthcare industries. Currently, most employers in these two sectors will not take anyone under 18. I would question, I would want to know more information on why. I suspect that it is industry or profession specific restrictions, in which case, depending on what those restrictions were, it may not be, even a jurisdictional issue for this committee.
Right. I mean, Mr. Ross, if you were 17, could he come here? I don't know. On flexible pathways.
Oh, I take this to mean specifically manufacturing and healthcare industries.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what it says.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that came out, it's flip, and I did not mean it to be flip.
It can be.
I'm sorry.
Listen, I refer to you as a legislative making, whatever it was, a bill machine, yeah, so.
I'm sorry. This is specific to manufacturing and healthcare, which is where my mind went.
Yeah.
Industry specific, let's find out what it is. That's preventing the job shadowing or apprenticeship, in which case that may not be within this committee's jurisdiction, but certainly flexible pathways within this committee's jurisdiction.
Whatever, yeah, Senator Williams.
I went to the Central Vermont Career Center.
Yeah.
But they asked me to come, but I went to one morning. And it was a specific, like they don't have a welding ability, they can't teach it.
Yeah.
So what they wanted to do was to farm the student out, because there was a shop that could would take on a student as like an apprentice, and show him, let him actually do the work after the instruction at the school. But the individual business owner didn't want to do it because of liability issues.
Well, you were in automotive for a while, right? Also, yeah, I mean, did you have people under
Yeah.
18?
Yeah.
You did,
Yeah,
full-time
it was a work-study program
It
from
was.
Foley High School, as a matter of fact.
Okay, so automotive industry, so, yeah, but it could have just been, they were okay with it, getting the insurance for that one person under some kind of work study
And it
arrangement.
might have been an arrangement between the business and the school, the parent.
The other the other area to understand, I think, in this would be VOSHA regulations.
Yeah,
Which again is outside of my wheelhouse, but happy to connect to.
VOSHA, it's VOSHA or OSHA?
Vermont, well, OSHA would be the
But the
federal, and then
Vermont,
VOSHA is the state level.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just hunting all
No,
of
this is good,
work.
this is what, and we've done this, but it's just a good review.
Adult, so we're moving on to page 2, adult tech ed. Not adequately set my tabs up for this conversation. So this is asking to fully fund an assistant director of adult technical education positions
At the agency?
for full-time at all tech centers.
Oh, I see.
So there's some, this could be, again, not when we're talking about money changing hands, easy.
Mhm.
But from a drafting perspective, this could be a relatively easy fix with just a little bit more direction. So currently, the way directors and assistant directors of both the secondary CTE centers and the adult tech ed centers are funded is spelled out in statute. And specifically, So the language you have says fully fund an assistant director for full-time at all tech centers for adult tech education. But then in parentheses, it uses this phrase remove up to, and then it refers to a statute. So in statute, the salary assistance for assistant directors for adult education shall be up to 50% of the state average salary and benefits paid to full-time assistant directors for adult education. So my question would be, is this an ask to just require a flat 50%? Or is this an ask to require full funding 100%, right? Fully fund, to me, doesn't necessarily match up to 50%. So I just want to understand more what the intent behind this ask is. But you could certainly amend, this is all spelled out in statute, where there's kind of a different pot of money coming from this, right, Brad? For these assistant director and director positions in the two different types of tech ed centers. So you could easily change that. The math behind that and the effect that will have on the various pots of money may not be that easy, but.
So right now, just so I'm clear, the assistant director at an adult technical education program is limited, there's a cap on how much they can make?
On state, let's see, assistance, state assistance, under this, let's see. So this, let's see. It's the state board shall reimburse the school district operating a career and technical center for a portion of its cost in paying the salary of the following persons. And included in there is assistant director for adult education. And so then the statute goes on to spell out how much for each position is the state board kicking in.
Mr. James, do you know anything about why it is this way?
No, I don't. I know that we do the calculations each year, but I do not know why it was set up that way. I mean, reading through what statute says, as Beth said, both, or as St. James said, what is my last name again? The directors and guidances are 50%, assistant directors are 35%, and co-op director. But the assistant directors of the co-op for the department for the adult education are up to 50%. I think it sounds like I'm just skimming through it, but it sounds like it's based on something coming from general fund. I can't off the top of my head think of what that would be. It may be that there's a pool of money that I'm just unfamiliar with, but I don't think that's the case. I'll have to check into that for
Do
you.
you mind checking in and then maybe coming back on Friday with, does that work? Have Brad James back on Friday for 15 minutes. That'd be great. We can see if that's something we could do.
Well, you can decide what you want to do. This ask is not clear to me based on the
Yeah,
language
no, I
of the
understand.
statute,
Yeah,
but
yeah. And we can always have Jody back in as well, but it's the one that I think, I'm just starring that we could probably do this year if all the stars align. Okay,
the next one, allow use of Act 77 funds for high school students to enroll in adult technical education programs to earn an IRC, which I believe is industry recognized credential. So this might be my ignorance, in which case I have a lot of homework to do. But Act 77 is the Flexible Pathways Act, right? So Flexible Pathways already includes career technical education as an allowable part of Flexible Pathways. So if there is a problem to fix, I would want to know more specifically from the field, what is that problem?
okay.
In relation to funds going to adult tech education programs, or whether it's just an industry recognized credential. There is a specific carve out for high school students to attend secondary career technical centers, I believe. Yep. Secondary students, a secondary career technical student, high school student may be enrolled in a post-secondary career technical education course at the expense of the student's school district of residence if enrollment is accepted by the post-secondary career institution and approved by the district of residence. Technically, post-secondary career technical center is different than adult career technical center. They are two different, they're defined terms in chapter 37, the CTE section. So one of them leads to a degree and the other one doesn't. So I would just want to know, in order to fix, if there is a problem, I would want to understand more about what that problem is in order to figure out what the fix would be. Because right now, under flexible pathways, career technical education in general is certainly a part of flexible pathways. Does that make sense?
It does, and
Okay.
I'm flagging that. I think what we'll end up with is 2 or 3 of these bullets that we'll have Jody Emerson come back in on and weigh in on Friday with Mr. James. Okay,
Where did you find that? Is that?
What I just read from?
Yes,
Yes, it's in the green book.
Okay.
Yes, I just don't have my green book open. It's, what I just read from is, section 1593. And in general, the career technical education chapter in Title 16 is chapter 37. It's a big one. So all the CTE stuff is in chapter 37. And if you still have the book I gave you, it's all in there. Yep.
if not, Christmas is coming,
yeah,
another one.
Easter, but
That's right,
You want to go on?
please.
Okay,
Now, these are AOE positions.
yes.
Okay,
We need the AOE compliance division to hold sending schools accountable for the rules, regs, laws we already have. We have many good rules, regs, laws, but nobody can enforce them on behalf of the technical centers and our students. And again, I would want to know more about what is the problem. There is already a requirement. There's a requirement that at least once in each period of 5 years, and in coordination with the Vermont Advisory Council of Career Technical Education, the secretary shall evaluate the effectiveness of each career technical center in the state, and the state board shall prescribe the method for conducting these evaluations. And one of the things they have to look at is compliance with this chapter and rules of the state board. So is it just, it's only happening 5 years and that's not enough? Is it not happening? I would want to know again more about what's the actual problem. But there, at least in statute, there is a requirement that there is a review.
okay, we'll find out more. Bonus. And then staffing and AOT.
Yes, and that one, you can draft as many positions
Yeah.
as you want.
We can talk to Amy about that if we need to. I mean, there's transition there, the new secretary's coming in at some point, I'm not sure. Have you settled on there's an interim secretary?
Yes.
That's Dr. Boucher?
Yeah.
Any other major changes that we should know about?
Not that I'm aware
That you're aware of? Not at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm going to the adult learning, education learning center on Monday
Great,
to meet with the director. He contacted me, so I can maybe,
that's great. I'm just looking, you sent me their
Yep.
link. I'm glad you're going. It'll be interesting to see what they have to say, if they have anything from their end as it relates to this or anything that we're working on. Great, thank you. All right, we've got a lot here to follow up on. Just didn't want to lose it, so this is great. And it's on our list, so I think what I'll do is, for the committee, summarize this down to maybe 2 or 3 bullet points, have Jody Emerson in possibly on Friday with Brad James, see what we can do to move something forward on CTEs.
Can I update you on the report?
Absolutely.
So it looks like the JFO report deadline has been informally extended to March 31st. So there is no report yet, but
When you say informally extended, does it usually mean JFO has decided to take it upon themselves?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I I use that term because I am not aware of legislation that did that. But my understanding is you all will be getting a report on March 31st.
Great. Maybe we can just put that down on March 31st. We'll, soon thereafter, we'll have them in to get an update on what they've learned, even though recognizing that that work is going to be added to the work of AOE that'll come back in July, and therefore possibly deal with the first bullet on this, which is, or the second bullet, adequate funding. First
And first,
And
yeah,
first, yeah.
first and second.
Competitive funding. Couple other things while we have you there here. I'm going to ask Senator Weeks to negotiate something on driver's education. And so it's going to be with Joe, I think, in the agency. If you want to mention that, Lindsay, to Joe, we're going to ask Senator Weeks to take the lead on that, unless there's somebody else here that's, okay, not seeing anybody. And so we talked about that. Universal School Meals is coming to us. I think it's on the floor tomorrow.
Yes, there's a lot on the floor tomorrow, so I don't know what
Tomorrow.
they will get to.
Workforce Development Bill will come to us also. We'll divide it up between Senator Ron Hinsdale's committee and this committee, I believe. We will be seeing a bill from the House. I think that will ask us to postpone testing for PCBs. I think press has pretty well noted, documented my thoughts on that, but of course the committee may have something different. I'm just looking, I think those are most of the things. We're also going to be getting an independent school bill from the House, which I haven't really followed carefully. So once that's finished, we'll see what, I know it sounds like it's been changing, so.
It's on the floor
Tomorrow,
tomorrow.
okay.
Again, there's a lot on the floor tomorrow, so
So they may not get to it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just know that paid family leave, universal meals, and independent schools are all scheduled, along with a bunch of other bills. So that's a lot.
That's a lot.
And House Education took up a potential amendment today.
Oh, they did.
Whether that's actually offered, I don't know, but
They're
there is
reviewing.
one on their website.
Okay. Anything else for Ms. St. James as we look toward May? Okay. We'll get there. We'll be good. No doubt. Okay. Yeah, why don't we take 10 minutes and come back at 2:45?